I'm going to be demonstrating how to write to MySQL tables with a PHP form. I have this divided into a few different videos, and this first one is just going to go over the project setup. First of all, let's take a peek at the table that's created in MySQL Workbench. And I do have another video that goes over how to set this up if you haven't worked with this before and if you'd like to get to the point where we are now. I'd encourage you to jump over to that video first. The table that we'll be writing to is this users table that I created in that earlier video. And to check out what the data is so far, I can right-click and say Select Rows Limit 1000. So at this point, I just have a few records, and it's going to have a primary key of user ID. I have name, email, and I'm storing a password. Now, my little disclaimer is that this is just plain text. It should not be used to store actual passwords. I'll be showing how to encrypt passwords at a different demo. This is something just to show how to write to a table. So once again, do not use this for actual passwords. So if you notice right now, I only have 5 records, and we're going to use a form on the web to write additional records. So for now, I'm just going to go ahead and minimize that. On the web side, I already have a few things set up. I do have a local host set up with XAMPP. I have an Apache web server. I'm going to go ahead and start so I can preview my PHP locally. So all I did was push the start button there. I'm going to minimize that. And since I'm using that as my local web server, I need to be working out of the appropriate folder. So in my XAMPP folder on my C drive, I'm going into htdocs. I made a folder just called www to hold those. And for this project, I'm putting everything into something called user entry. This is going to be a multi-part project. So today I'm going to be demonstrating how to write to the database. Other times I'll show how to read from as well as change a password. So here is the file I'll be working with. And then I'm going to be using brackets to edit this. In brackets, I will be setting it up. I will be opening my folder, making sure I'm choosing that proper folder. So I navigated to user entry. I'm selecting that. And here is my page I've already created. I do also want to make sure that my project settings include my localhost location. So in this case, it is localhost, which is my htdocs site. www is that one folder I made, and user entry is my actual kind of site folder. Now for this, I already have just a basic form created with 3 fields. It's checking to make sure something is entered for each, and I have it just echoing out the result once things are entered. So let's take a peek and see what that's going to look like. So it's just basic. I'm not worrying about formatting right now, but here we have a thing where I can enter information, name, email, and password. If I hit submit and the information isn't written, I have little errors, and this is really just the feedback of what it is. Let's enter some things. And now it is writing, I have it write the information that was entered. And notice I also have it so that the values are staying in the fields once it's written. In this demonstration, I'm also going to show you how to hide the form once it's written. So right now, I'm not doing anything with the database yet. I just wanted to have my form set up and just a quick tour of that. I also have this as another video if you'd like this in more detail. But what I have set up here is a single page. At the bottom of my HTML, I have my form. My form method is post, and the action is going to the page that I'm working on. So my page is called userform.php, so the action is also userform.php. And then I have 3 fields. I have them called name, email, and pass so that I can refer to them in my PHP. And this value section is simply to fill the fields if there is an entry for name, for instance, it will echo back that entry. Now let's look up here. I have an if statement making sure to only process if a post request method is returned. So if the server request method is post, as in I posted that form, it will run my PHP code. And that for each field, I'm checking to see if that field, I'm using request, you could also use post, field is not empty. If it's not empty, I'm setting a variable to what was in the field. If not, I'm giving an error and I'm echoing, for instance, you didn't enter your name. I'm also doing that for email and pass. And so notice I have an if statement for each field. At the end here, I'm simply displaying what was entered. And I just have name, email, pass. And that was just done for testing purposes. So before doing anything with the database, I would recommend making sure your form works fine, because if you try to do everything all at once and then try to debug, it makes it way more difficult than do things in sections, make sure it works before continuing on. So once again, I do have a video that goes over the details of this if you need more details. So this is really just the setup of what you need to do. The next portion of the video will be about how to collect these errors and make sure that it will only run a section of code if there are no errors.